Do you ever feel scatterbrained? Like you don't know what to do or just feel overwhelmed? Everything's out of control? You're in luck because today this quick fix is about how to prioritize, how to get things organized so you can do what you need to do most and get it done. I'm Danny, and here my buddy Randy. What's up, Randy?
What's up, Danny?
Yeah, and this is the Existential Stoic Podcast Quick Fix. So, how to prioritize. We'll each give you some tips for how to prioritize in this short episode. But why do you prioritize?
Well, there's a saying that in life we can do pretty much anything, but we can't do everything.
It's a
And,
great saying.
we're both, yeah, I know, right? And we're both very similar that we're pretty good at a lot of stuff. And we also like to do a lot of stuff. So with that, you can get totally distracted and totally miss out on
Yes.
where you actually want to go because there's so many different distractions. There's video games, there's playing guitar, there's reading books, there's going for walks, there's exercising, there's spending time with friends and family. And the list goes on and on and
Yeah.
on. And so like literally, if you don't know what's important to you, you'll just waste your whole entire life and then come to the end of it and be like, I didn't do what I actually wanted to do and now I can't. So I think that's
No,
why prior important.
that's like I think hits the nail on the head too, because then you end up starting too many things and never like really progressing with them long enough to actually like really get good at them and do them the way you want, right? So I think that's yeah, it's so true. All right, so let's start then. I'm gonna go first. My first one is pretty straight, something we talk about all the time, I think, which is routine. I think building in a routine helps you start to identify things that matter to you, and it helps you start to gain control of your day, structure it a bit, which is essential for prioritization. And this routine can be whatever you want. We both talk about bookending our day a lot, having like journal exercises, walk in the morning, thing like that, and then something at night like meditation, something to close out the day. That's a good way to start. It's easy. It doesn't take a lot of time, but yeah, routines I think are essential.
And I think that's a great one because it also frees up mental space. So, like when you have a routine, you're
Yeah,
used to doing these things regularly. So, you don't have to think about doing them. And then all that
yeah,
mental energy that you would normally use to think of doing these things, you don't have to. So, you have that where you can think of, okay, now I have this time and I have these things I want to do. What can I actually do? That's a good
yeah.
one.
It's funny too when you just do something instead of stressing it, because like when you're trying to make yourself do it, you waste so much energy. It is funny. It could be
Absolutely.
anything.
Yeah. So my first one, heard this from a military person, and basically, she said when you prioritize, you have three categories: A, B, and C. A is the most important. C is the least important. So categorize everything you have. Groups: A, most important; C, or B, medium importance; C, least important, and then throw out C and start working on A. So I think this is great because a lot of us think that, oh, we prioritize things, now we have to do all of our priorities, and oftentimes the most important things are not the easiest things to do, they're not the funnest things to do, and so we
Yeah,
get distracted and we're like, oh yeah, well, that one's hard, so I'll do this thing that's more fun and easy, I'll check my Facebook because that's important, you know but
yeah.
it's really not. So throw out those things that really aren't important and focus more on the things that are, and just realize it's going to take a lot of time. Like
Yeah.
I always figure in my mind that things are going to take probably about 10 times as long as I think it's going to take, and
Yeah.
that's just the way it ends up being.
It's a good way to think though. It prepares you, right? So you don't work yourself up when it does start to take longer. And I really do like that system though, because it is smart. Because I think we all look for the easy things on our list to make ourselves feel accomplished, like we're doing something when we're not really working towards what we should be getting done. And you're right; those a priority things are the hardest, and you do the hardest things now, things are easier later. So it just makes
Yeah.
sense to do it that way. Yeah,
Yeah. And there's also another thing about just being patient with it. Like this is a little
yeah.
bit off topic, but I just want to mention it. Like back a while ago when I first started researching how to be a programmer, I think there was a Reddit post or something about how to like teach yourself programming. And if you look in any bookstore nowadays, there's like learn
Oh
Python
yeah,
in 24 hours, learn C++
yeah.
in 24 hours, do this in 6 hours. Overnight you'll be a genius. And the guy in
4 hour
the
course.
post was
Yeah.
the guy in the post was like, this is ridiculous. You can't do that. But what you can do is 10 years. In 10 years, you can be a phenomenal programmer. So instead of
Yeah.
trying to do it now and getting frustrated because you don't have it right now, just have a little bit of patience, realize it's going to take 10 years. And then, in 10 years, you'll be 10 years older. But if you don't start now, you're never going to be a programmer then. So you might as well just do it because you're going to be older anyways.
it's a great, no, it's a great example too, because I think, I've been doing that myself, or learning a new language or anything really that you're learning, like to get good at it takes a long time. You have to realize that. Like, yeah, you can master like the basics pretty quickly sometimes, and get a good sense of it, but it doesn't mean you're an expert. And I think having that mindset is it's essential, because that's one of the things I think that causes us the most problems for pursuing what we want and all is, that time that it takes and getting overwhelmed or feeling like we're failing. That's a good point. My second one, is this one's a little bit broader and a little bit more difficult, I think, at times, but know what matters to you. And I think, we can't prioritize unless we know what we're going after. And I think there's a lot of ways you can do this, whether it's just like reflecting on what's really important in your life, what you really want, writing down your goals every day, like your top 5 goals, to kind of get a sense of like what direction you're headed in. But I think this is what matters, because, everybody wants like money and stuff like that. But do you really want to be super rich and busy all the time? Or do you want like to spend more time with family and stuff? Do you want to build a family? Because those are two different goals, I think. And understanding that, some things we want in life, we might just think we want it, but we don't really want it. So getting clear on what matters to us, what we want, is essential, I think, if you're going to prioritize.
Yeah, that's a great one, because it's also important to know what's important to you, not what's
Yeah,
important to society, not what's important to
yeah,
your parents or your spouse or anything, but what's actually important to you, because that's going to be different for everyone. Like we talk about
yeah.
this all the time, how like I grew up with expectations to go to school, to get a good job, to get married, to buy a house. And I did most of this stuff, and I was miserable. And then I actually sat down and figured out like what's important to me, and I started doing that stuff, and my life got a lot better.
Well, I think that's this is that's the one thing I think where most people, I would say, probably don't know really what they're going after, what they want. And you see it all the time, and it's like, and unfortunately it's just hard. It's one of those things where you have to get, it's really hard to push back against all those pressures, expectations, and everything in society to really kind of get clear. You got to kind of clear the way for yourself, and it's not easy. Yeah.
Absolutely. So to help with finding out
Ooh,
what's important to you, this is my second one, is imagine you're on your deathbed. You've lived
I
80
like this
some
one.
years or 100 some years, whatever it is, a nice long life. You're on your deathbed. You can't do anything else at this point. You're pretty much days, maybe
That's
weeks,
it.
you're going to
Yeah.
die. But you can look back on your life, and which things did you want to do that you didn't do? And which things were important to you? And this is a way when I have like a lot of stuff that I'm trying to figure out, like kind of the bigger picture, where should I be going, what should I be doing? I always use this deathbed analogy, because I know I'm going to be there one day. And so I want to be able to look back and be like, you know what, I did it, and I didn't let anything stop
Yeah.
me. And I've heard that like people, when they're older on their deathbed, they always regret more the things they didn't do than the things they did do. So if there's something that you're hesitant doing, you should probably just do it.
No, I think that's, it's funny. That's a great point. And thinking that way too, and then asking yourself, what am I hesitant about? Because there's a lot of things I think in all of our lives that we keep coming back to, but we never do because we're afraid. We're either scared of like, how people are going to respond, or we're afraid of failure or whatever. But those things we should be doing, because those are the things we're going to look back and regret. And honestly, using this thought experiment is a great way to honestly reflect and ask yourself, like, what would I really be upset that I didn't try? That I didn't even bother to do because I was scared or something. And I think that's going to be the thing that's probably the most important thing in your life that you just haven't admitted it yet to yourself. So yeah, that's a great one. I think it's a great way to think about it. My last one, I think, kind of is very practically oriented, but when you're trying to prioritize, I think one of the things that really helps me a lot is I use my phone and I just write down a to-do list every day, and I just put 2 or 3 things on it. Those are the 2 or 3 things that if I can get them done that day, I'll feel good about my day. Everything else is kind of a bonus. And usually it's, I try to make it so it's like 2 or 3 things that'll take me like, not all day, but like I realistically like probably about 6 hours or so, if it's like work related and stuff. And I think doing that really helps me just focus on what I need to get done today. And then the rest of the time I can do more. I can work on something else, but it's like it makes me feel like, okay, I've accomplished today at least I can move on to my other stuff. And I think I might have picked that up from you actually, from when we were talking before about something, but I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. To-do lists are nice because then you also get the added bonus of checking them off when you're done.
Yeah, which really does. It does feel good, doesn't it? It's like you
Oh,
feel
absolutely.
accomplished and oh, it's nice.
Absolutely. Because, it's hard. Like, we're all so busy, we're doing so many things. And if you don't acknowledge your victories in the day, your successes during the day, they can just go by without you even realizing it. So,
Oh
actually,
yeah.
having that list, taking the time to be like, I did this. And then you feel a lot better because you get that reward. Like, that's why gaming is so good because they give you those
Yeah, oh,
small
yeah. Yeah.
successes and the rewards. Like, that's what a to do list is. You get those rewards when you're doing it as well. Which brings me to my last one, which is when I finally have like my list of priorities or a list of things that I know I need to do, and I only have so much time in a day. This is another little mental game I like to play with myself. Imagining that, like, if I was sick or something where I could only do one thing today, like, that's it. I have this whole list. There are 12 things I need to do, but today I can only do one thing. What's that one thing? And I look through the list and I try and figure out, like, if I can only do one, the rest of them aren't going to get done. Which one is that? And I figure out that one. And then I'm like, okay, well, let's say I could do two things. What are those two? Or maybe three things or whatever it is. So that way I can know, because the thing is, we're all going to die. And when we're done, when we die, we're still going to have stuff left undone. So,
Oh
like,
yeah.
no matter
Yeah.
how good you are at completing stuff, there's still going to be a ton of stuff left undone. So it's important to figure out, if you can only do a limited amount of stuff, what is the most important thing to do, and helping to identify that, especially when you have a big list, it really helps
Yeah.
cut through the clutter because you get to really narrow down what is the most important, and then you can just start working on that.
I think that's it too, right? Is you have most of us, I'm sure, could list a lot of things we want to do or that are important to us. And really sitting down with that list of your top 10 or top 20 or top 30 things that are important and asking yourself, what is the thing I would do now if I only had time to do one? That's a tough question. And so I think it's one that a lot of us fail to ask, which also makes it hard to prioritize because we just don't know clearly which one is the most important, on our list or the most relevant or whatever. And the funny thing is, too, that may change depending on other circumstances,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's an important thing to admit, too. Like, say a family member's sick, that might bump up seeing them on the list, right, to the top because it's important now. And I think understanding that is really, it's one of the hard things in life is figuring out, what to do at any given
Yeah,
time.
and I just wanted to add one more thing. I would also say that, like, some people spend all their time prioritizing. They get stuck in analysis paralysis
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So you also have
Yeah.
to realize, if you're one of those people that you just want to get everything, all the green lights lined up before you even leave the house, just get started. Like,
Yeah.
if you have kind of a clear enough direction, just get started. Once you're on the way, you'll figure out where to go from there.
We can literally hold ourselves up in every single stop along the way or every single part of the process. I swear, it's so funny, isn't it? We procrastinate, we get caught up in perfectionism, we get caught up in setting it up right. It's really funny. But yeah,
Mhm.
so that's a quick fix for today. How to prioritize a short 10-minute episode. So you guys should all be able to prioritize now, hopefully, or at least have some tips for it. Check us out later this week for the full length episode. Watch us on YouTube. Listen to us on all the podcasting apps. Please like, subscribe, share with your friends. It helps a lot. But yeah, until our longer episode later this week. Later, Randy.
Later, Danny.